Okay, this is the vlog for August 5th, 2018, and let's keep this quick because this shirt is warm and so is this house. The heat is coming back, and for uh, for example, I had to turn the air conditioning on today, which we have not had to do for a few days now because of the nice cool weather with the clouds and a little bit of rain on Thursday and Friday. But that's going away for now. And what was originally going to be a high of 87 on Wednesday is now quickly becoming a high of 90 on 2 different days. So it's going to get warm this week. But that's what we got the air conditioning unit for. So hopefully that will keep everything up here pretty nice. What did I do today? That's an easy one, but I'm not even sure I want to talk about it. One second. There's this little speck of something right next to the camera. There we go. Okay. Today I went into World of Warcraft and I did the War of Thorns, whatever it's called. The event where the World Tree of Teldrassil is burned by the Horde, starting the war that is going to be Battle for Azeroth. It was very sad. It was so sad that I cried, and let me tell you why. My first character was a Night Elf. It was a Night Elf Druid, and I made that character back when I was still in college. This would have been 2004, November of 2004, 14 years ago, nearly 14 years ago. And the game was really good. It had competition. It was trying to beat out EverQuest 2 for the new big MMO. And a lot of people thought that EverQuest 2 was going to be a bigger success because EverQuest had a sort of a longer pedigree in online gaming, and EverQuest 2 was visually, at least at first, the apparent winner. The problem with the visuals in EverQuest 2 was that while they were of sort of a higher graphical fidelity, the actual graphic design was not quite what people were expecting. I think the thing I heard the most was that character models and textures had a plastic look to them. They sort of felt artificial. In trying to make them more realistic, they had ironically created something that looked a lot less real. And the sort of primitive nature of the animations and the facial animations, especially at that time, meant that it just didn't feel it didn't look very good, and it ran very poorly on a lot of people's computers. World of Warcraft, on the other hand, looked a little dated at the time, which says something now that it's 14 years old. It looked like a slightly upscaled Warcraft 3, which had come out in 2001 or 2002 maybe, and had itself looked just a touch dated, mostly due to the texture compression being a little bit low and the actual triangle count on the models also being relatively low compared to its contemporaries. A lot of real-time strategy games had made the jump to 3D before Warcraft had, and had experimented and sort of found their legs and looked better than Warcraft 3 did, but they didn't play quite as good. And that was the other thing that set World of Warcraft apart, is that it felt easy. Like the actual way that you played the game was just simple. It was still complicated because the mechanics and what made it complicated were doing group activities like dungeons where everyone sort of had a role, but that role wasn't extraordinarily clearly defined at first. So, for example, it was understood that protection warriors would be better tanks than basically any other class, but that other types of warriors could still tank, which led to me being in groups where it was an arms warrior using a two-handed weapon tank and having a very difficult time of it, Um, it's also worth noting that back when the game launched, the only thing that set different specs apart were the talent choices, and those talent choices could be pulled from 3 different trees. So any given character was a complete crapshoot. People could make their character wrong a lot of the times, and you would make a group with somebody like me who made my character wrong. And it's already 5 minutes. Barely talked about this thing. And yeah, the game, you could play the game wrong, and it's taken about a decade to sort of make it idiot proof, and it's still one of the easiest MMOs to get into, but it has grown progressively more complicated over the years, even as they've tried to simplify things like removing archaic systems like the weapon skill system, or the way that you had to actually buy your skills whenever you leveled up instead of being granted them automatically, as is the case now. But one thing that World of Warcraft had and still has in some capacity is the ability to build a world where it's fun to be there. It's fun to exist in your digital avatar form in this world. It has this sort of cartoonish Disney almost quality to it that just makes it easy on the eyes. It's easy to understand what's going on most of the time. They don't try and use overly complicated, they don't try and drown the environment with spell effects, particle effects. And so that's why it's so devastating to see the first zone I ever played World of Warcraft in basically destroyed. The world tree burns to the ground more or less by the conclusion of the quest, and the Night Elves no longer have a home in Kalimdor, the continent that they've lived upon for well over 10 millennium. And this is an expansion that is just going to upset people. Whatever else, however much fun it is, whatever systems they add or change or tweak to make the game more fun and more appealing, easier for a new player to pick up, or anything else like that, it's going to upset people, because it's going to make them take a side when a line is drawn in the sand and pick a leader that they're not going to have a lot of confidence in, because all the leaders that people did have confidence in have stepped by the wayside and or died. And what we are left with are people who are either doing the best they can or serving their own interests while claiming to serve others, and not really being good leaders in any capacity. I suppose it's a metaphor for the United States at the moment, where not a lot of Americans have faith in their leader. But I play games to escape reality, not to see it mirrored in a horrible situation like what I've been faced with. So I cried. I cried for Teldrassil, this tree that I once thought was a silly idea, trying to regrow a new world tree that has only lasted roughly 20 years in the in-game chronology. I still didn't want to see it wiped out like this, and certainly not in an action that is meant to divide two forces that were already very divisive. I don't have a lot of hope at this point, which means everything that they do right is going to be a really pleasant surprise, and everything that they do wrong is going to remind me that this is not the same game I picked up 14 years ago. It has evolved, it has changed, and I don't know if it's the game I want to keep playing and certainly keep paying money for month after month and year after year. But we'll see. Anyway, I'm Eric Spornitz, and tomorrow will be better.